I'm only going to hit on some of the key points about each panelist because you can read the rest. Hussain has been doing a lot of PMO type courses and delivering them through LinkedIn as well. And the one that he presented to us on May 9th on the evolution of a PMO leader was quite interesting for me. I remember the part about his recommendation that we act on our passion, and I think that'll come out today as well. So he lives in Toronto and has a BA and computer science degree. So I'll move on to the next person. Of course, you heard from Dimitry just now. And again, there's a lot of accomplishments amongst these four panel members. And you can read that Dimitry has been in PMM with over 20 years of experience and has been working with leaders, leveraging a global vision of organizational challenges and objectives to identify optimal solutions. And I won't continue reading, but Dimitry has been very instrumental in getting this group going, as you know, and so his visionary and strategic insights are clearly coming out. Okay, so let's move on to Alina, who is quite alive, and that is her last name, I think, as well. And she's had a lot of contributions to the project management world, into the PMO world. And as you can see, she's been a keynote speaker and has put out a lot of work corresponding to the PM World Journal, a lot of publications on PM, Agile, especially Agile, and leadership as well. She published a book as well, It Starts With You, and has a master's degree in business, and of course a PMP, PMI-ACP, and several Agile certifications. And you know, when I was looking at Aina and Hussain's profile as well, what they don't mention here is something that I came across. I was part of an online educational type forum called Project Bytes, and both Aina and Hussain have also submitted stuff on Project Bytes, which is really a 20-minute video, so you can hear them or hear their podcast as well. And then finally, the last panelist is Luca, who also is very accomplished and is a PMO expert, over 20 years of project management, masters in computer science, engineering, and a bunch of certifications in project management. Again, you can read all about Luca, very involved in helping organizations achieve project delivery and in streamlining communications, maximizing resource utilization. So he helps organizations achieve sustainable growth. And so today he's going to talk about sustainability as well. All right, so those are the four. So let's give them a hand virtually, and we're going to now move on to the panel. Does anybody want to say anything before we do that? And you can obviously ask questions about any of those four panel members as well. All right, so as you can see on the first question, oh, is that somebody who wants to say something?
No, we're just clapping.
Oh, okay. All right. So PMO maturity, what a topic. And before Hussain comes on to talk about this, I just wanted to mention that this is a very interesting question, because it will open up to many different aspects and permutations of PMO, and it might be a simple answer for many of us who have read up or understood PMOs. Obviously, you know, a new PMO will not be mature, will not have as much maturity. So we also know that from what's going on around us, complexity of portfolios have increased, and so we'll need an organization like a PMO to be able to handle that, because what we know and what we hear is that more and more leadership and executives are demanding for help with given the complexity of portfolios, given the disruptive technology we're facing, whether it's digitalization or robotics or AI. We need a mature organization to deal with all these changes. I'll call them changes and complexities. So if there is a general consensus that we are shifting, the PMO needs to go from tracking, monitoring, and reporting to managing real life business outcomes, then how key is maturity for a PMO? How important is that? So I'm going to look forward now to listening to Hussain as he tells us his take on it. So I'm going to start you off, Hussain, with this question, and now, if you're ready, you have the floor for answering this question.
Fantastic, Joe. Thanks so much for that opportunity, and welcome everyone. I'm glad everybody was able to join on this wonderful Thursday evening here in Toronto. So great question about why why do we really need to assess maturity for a PMO? And I would really say, Joe, that there are really three reasons why, or three drivers or use cases, if you will, for why a maturity assessment for a PMO is needed. The first driver is in a situation where a PMO actually doesn't even exist, right? So when an organization really wants to look at what does it need to do to formalize its PMO function, aka set up its PMO, it needs to understand where it is and where it needs to eventually go. And so in order for it to do that, it needs to conduct a maturity level assessment on its own project management function. So how good are all the different disciplines of project management within the organization? How great is management of the schedules, management of the budget, management of the risks and issues, management of the stakeholders, management of the resources, et cetera, et cetera. And not just that, but in the absence of a PMO, how well do other entities within the organization align with each other? Is there good cross collaboration? Is there fantastic tech affinity, or are we really looking at somewhere off the ground? And I think something that was mentioned earlier as well, in terms of just the notion of being educated on the concept of a PMO. Many organizations don't even know what that is. Even having an understanding and engaging that before a formal PM function is set up, that is where a maturity level assessment can be really, really helpful. So, Joe, that's really the first driver of why a maturity level assessment is important or can be helpful. The next one is really focusing on the optimization of a PMO. So once you do have a PMO that is set up, and now in the name of continuous improvement, it needs to constantly evolve. Because as I often tell PMO leaders, when things don't go well, people expect you to do more. And when things do go well, people still expect you to do more, right? Because you've already hit the bar, and now you're expected to raise the bar and do more. And really that makes total sense, because PMOs essentially really help organizations hit their strategic and tactical goals, which due to internal and external factors change. And that change is constant. And so if you are operating at a level of the business needs that are predated, then you get outdated really, really quickly. And so in order to maintain that, you do need to go ahead and continuously improve and optimize your PMO, which again is where a maturity assessment helps you optimize. And then the final driver is really where a PMO exists, it's operating, it's doing well, but somebody challenges it to demonstrate its value to the organization, right? And so when that call comes, you've got to be able to go ahead and understand what it is the PMO doing to really move the needle for the organization in both qualitative and quantitative manners, right? So these are the three areas, three drivers, three whys of where a maturity level assessment for a PMO is helpful. And as I sum that up, Joe, it's in addition to these three whys, I'd also like to talk a bit about just the three whats. What does a PMO maturity level assessment help a PMO with? Number one, it helps provide a starting point for a PMO. So if you are setting up a PMO, or if you're even optimizing a PMO, or if you're demonstrating the value of a PMO, it provides a starting point. It provides a level of understanding of why a PMO should exist and how a PMO is supporting the business. And ultimately, it also helps provide the roadmap of what the PMO needs to do to actually mature or actually get set up. So it does provide that starting point. So just as an example, one of the clients recently, came up to me and said, what, Hussain, we have a lot of PMs. We have PMs who are operating really, really well, and we have some PMs who are operating not so well. We have PMs who are new to the organization. We have PMs who have been seasoned. We have PMs who are trained, and we have PMs who are accidental. So things are a bit chaotic and a bit inconsistent, and we need some realignment. And so in those situations, conducting a maturity assessment overall of the PMO was a perfect way to develop a starting point for the PMO and understand what the roadmap for its maturity, or even bringing some level of consistency and realignment could be. The other what that a PMO really does is really helps provide focus area. It shines a light on what the PMO should really do right now that is important to the business, that aligns with its corporate strategy, both tactical and strategic needs, as well as making sure that the scope of work of the PMO is defined properly. So one of the times, a client came up to me and said, what, Sam, we have a lot of money, and we don't care how much money we spend on our projects. All we care about is that our projects get done on time. And so that became very, very clear to me, is that I, or the PMO, need to focus 0% on managing the budget. And all the focus should be on management of the schedule. Right? And so that assessment led to that kind of revelation that helped us define the scope of work. And finally, what a PMO maturity assessment really does is gives you the performance measures or the metrics that you really need to focus on as you're improving your maturity. Because if you have a starting point, if you have a focus area, but you aren't measuring where you were at the start and where you are today, then you have no proof. And that measurement can be both qualitative in nature, or it could be quantitative in nature. And just recently, someone came to me and said, Hussain, you know what? I went to my execs and I asked for additional headcount. And they came back to me and said, well, what value are you providing? Can you justify the headcount? And I said, well, do you have any metrics in place that will help you figure that out? And they said, no. And so that became a classic example of a situation where conducting, even if it's a mini maturity assessment, but some sort of a maturity assessment that helps them figure out where they are today, where they were in the past, if possible, and help them figure out how much have they come through to really showcase to executives that things matter. And again, performance measures could be qualitative or quantitative. The reason why I say that is because you don't have to boil the ocean to demonstrate that you're doing well. Even if you have some key members within the organization who are influential and you get great anecdotal feedback, sometimes that's good enough to push the right buttons for you. So in a nutshell, Joe, the 3 whys, in my opinion, that where my maturity assessment level assessments are helpful for PMOs are: number 1, setting up a PMO; number 2, optimizing it; and number 3 is demonstrating its value. And what it really spits out for you is a starting point or a roadmap, really helping you define the why of the PMO. It also helps you define the scope or the focus area of work, and finally, some performance measures and metrics that can help you make your case for your PMO.
Okay, thank you, Hussain. Some very intriguing and interesting stuff you mentioned, and I have some stuff to talk about when it comes to the metrics, performance measures you mentioned, but let's turn it now to the folks on the call, and allow them to offer their perspectives or ask questions, share your anecdotal experiences. Let's make this really engaging. Please grab the mic.
Sorry, I'm just really with Hussain, what you were just saying about the importance of, it can be qualitative or quantitative. It doesn't necessarily, kind of probably depending on what it is, one might be more appropriate than the other, but just the importance of that. And it does take upfront time to set that up and to monitor that and to make sure that that's also being managed and delivered. But I just think that that point is so important, because I think it's especially for external PMOs or consultants, where it's like, you need to really not only deliver the value, but show people that you're doing so. Otherwise, really, like, what is the point of having you around? And there's so much value that we can provide, and we know that that's being done, but unless we're loud about it, it's a very easy thing to overlook. And of course, like that's, it would be up to us to make sure that that's being shown.
Absolutely. And I mean, just like project management, PMOs it's a very thankless sort of a role or an entity, right? And generally, when we're looking at PMOs, they're looking at producing, bringing things consistent, making things, transparent, cost savings, and truth be told, there are a few PMOs who help in generating revenue, but most of the PMOs help in saving money, right? And reducing cost. And the reality is that making money is more sexy than saving money, right? And so it's up to us to go ahead and try to go ahead and position it in such a way that it really hits the nail on the head and touches the right areas of interest and pain points for those stakeholders, so they really get a good sense of why it is we are doing what we're doing and how it's really making a difference for them.
I think that can be really difficult to do in certain ways. Like, I think it's easier to measure money made than money saved. It also can be challenging, I think, to measure the possible cost of risks that were mitigated. But I think if you set up the risk management with a lot of finesse in terms of how those risks are measured in their size and their weight, then you can use that. So depending on how you set up the project to begin with, you can use those same metrics to prove the value.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Kat.
Cool.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that, Kat, and thank you, Hussain, again. In the interest of time, we're going to move on to the next question, and then should we have time after, we'll come back. Because there's some intriguing stuff, as I said earlier. I would like to make some comments as well. But let's move to the next question, which we know Dimitry is going to tackle, because he's probably has a lot of hands-on experience with this. So yeah, without further delay, Dimitry, what is the process of evaluating a PMO's maturity?
I think that it really varies, right? There's no set answer. We had a discussion on Slack, and there are some tools that can be used to evaluate the PMO's maturity. What I found is maybe one of the most important things is the level of understanding the C-suite leader for projects has about PMOs. So when you're part of an organization where that primary leader has no interest or understanding, then the likelihood that there are layers of complexity about how projects are delivered is pretty low, versus if that primary leader, usually at the C-suite, is well versed in project management, which has happened to me almost never, but I'm fortunate to have that right now. then the demands on maturity increase exponentially, right? And when you're going to evaluate how things are done, I feel that the first step is a methodology or a framework that's used within the organization to achieve success on projects. So is there a methodology or a framework? How rigorous is it in terms of, is it just a bunch of templates and people use it when they want? Have you made some really cool Teams automated functionality that every time you create a project record, there's a Teams folder structure with populated templates in it? Are there reviews done on a regular basis by a line manager or by a centralized body that sort of double check on how things are going on a project and whether the prescribed process and templates are being used? Is there robust reporting that helps people understand exactly what's being done on projects, and at the portfolio level as well? We've talked about P3O, and P3O is basically project program portfolio, which are basically roll-ups of one another, right? When you manage projects, you're managing a project. When you're managing a program, it's a collection of similar projects, and a portfolio will be a collection of projects and programs. So do you have those different variations in your environment? Do you just have projects? Is it really just PMO is what people call project management, the project management function, and there are no standards whatsoever? So what's everyone's experience with that? In the organization that you're in right now, what would you say you have? Nobody?
I talk too much, Dimitry. It just can't be me again. I'm trying, I want to help you out, but it's got to be someone else.
You can make it quick. That's okay. You can just say, okay, you said 3 POs, so your organization has all 3. Eugene, how about you?
I'm not sure that in my organization it's gonna be a good example of quite mature PMO. I would say we have kind of interesting hierarchy that is not like usual. It's a bit kind of different.
So is there like are you supposed to follow the rules when you deliver a project? Like, are there rules?
I would say that there are no so much rules that I would like to see, because I worked in multiple organizations. In some of them, you would expect to see the rule for any activity that you do, like estimates, communication plan, reporting, whatever you have that, and you just know where to go and find it, which is good. And I think and believe that this is very good practice, especially for the moment when the new PMs are being onboarded and they need this information, and you don't have to spend any time trying to teach them and share that information. So they just have the knowledge base, they go there and check all the information they need. And if they have any questions, they just reach out to you and discuss only that moments that they couldn't understand. In the current organization, I would say that the whole company, it's about, I don't know, 700 people. It's divided to 10 different business units, each business unit up to like 120 people. And on the top of this unit, we have kind of portfolio leader. Then we have kind of program manager. And on the top, we have project managers that manage the projects. And in addition to that, we have some kind of knowledge base, which is still kind of in progress in terms of the amount of information that we have there. I would rather say that we are compensating lack of described processes by hiring very mature project managers. And we know that they're gonna be all the projects will be delivered successful because they are mature. But at the same time, I'm not sure if we are ready to hire, let's say, junior project managers that would definitely require some detailed processes described. So
if only I had a nickel for every time I heard, let's hire some experienced PMs and they will raise the bar on the way we deliver. We don't have to tell them what to do. They know what to do. Oh, and by the way, we're not going to pay them anything.
Yeah, so it's different. And still, I'm continue working for the Ukrainian company, and that's not a baseline for the local Canadian company. So I'm curious to hear, what do you guys have in your organizations?
Okay, well, I think from a timing perspective, we're not going to be able to go around the horn for everyone. But in Canada, in generally, what I would say is that it really depends. It depends on the industry. It depends on how old the company is. It depends on the business model, because Hussain, to your earlier point about PMOs usually being cost centers, I've been a part of a couple of PMOs where our business is consulting and we deliver revenue. But then, there's a component of, oh, these people, they cost money. And they're basically, they just work in the PMO versus being billable. So Eugene, that's another, different variation. I think there's a lot of different options, and it also, like in the financial sector, which is quite common in Canada and Toronto, it becomes kind of the more large places that have lots of people and process, but maybe they don't really adhere to it even that much. So there aren't a lot of reviews to make sure that they do that. But yeah, really great. And Joe, I'm sure we're way over time, so I apologize.
No,
back to you.
You're good till 6:45, so actually have another minute. But
Okay.
if anybody wants,
Kat wants the minute.
yeah.
I really asked for it, didn't I, Dimitry?
No, what about, so why don't you answer Eugene's question in a minute? What's your organization like?
So our organization, fairly mature, just mostly thanks to our principal, he's been around the block. So he's able to really drive to make sure that we're in tip-top shape and that we're capable of kind of taking on a lot of these levels. So I think we're in fairly good shape. It's only thanks to him that I was able to understand what Hussain was saying. So in that way we're good, but we are small. So I think every time we add folks and we add capabilities, it's like, it is something that does need to kind of get rebuilt from the ground up. In whatever way we're kind of adding things on. So not to say that we're perfect or anything, but I would say that we've got a pretty good grasp of those levels, if that makes sense.
Awesome.
Yeah. And you know, whether you have what is the ideal number of project managers? Whether you have more project managers than less, is that a sign of PMO maturity? It's like you
How
said.
many big ones do you have? That's the question.
So it's a question for how many project managers we have?
Whether a PMO has under its umbrella X number of project managers, does that mean the more it has, the more mature it is? No, it doesn't, right? But some people may use that as a process for evaluating PMO maturity.
It's
Okay.
just a sign of how big it is.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
There's this consulting shop that works at the place that no, I'll stop now. Size doesn't always matter. Let's put it that way.
Okay, well, let's hear from Aina, because you know this generates a lot of thought, and when she talks about methodologies. If I should move down to the next one, methodologies that a mature PMO would employ. And so, Aina, if you want to share and shed some light on your perspectives.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Joe, for giving this question to me. I think as an Agile coach, I relate to methodology the most. And also, I've been practicing different methodologies in the last 5+ years, also investing so much time in working for Canadian enterprises and also voluntarily helping different startups here in Canada, States, and all over the world. And so what I noticed that everyone who invites me to work for them or to help as a volunteer, thinking that, oh, she's an Agile coach, so she knows something cool, she knows a new methodology, she definitely has the ace under her sleeve, and here we are, a new methodology, secret knowledge, so we're going to be good. But sorry, guys, I will disappoint you. No secret knowledge today, nothing you don't know. It's just tedious work of what we already know, what methodologies already exist. And if we do it right, if we do it tediously and monotonely, we will get a success. And I will tell you a story a bit different from work related to PMOs, Agile, etc. Many years ago, when living in Ukraine, I practiced belly dancing, definitely as an amateur, not as a professional. So I decided to improve my style and be a bit better. So I hired one-on-one instructor to give me feedback and to improve some moves and elements. And so the instructor evaluated me, everything, what I do with my body, and then identified the one element, and it's called key in belly dance. And so she told, you struggled with everything, obviously, but with the key, you struggle the most. So the next hour, we will just stand in front of the mirror and practice this one element until you get better. So I think Vishwa can relate to this as a martial art practitioner. But talking about methodology, again, nothing new. Since as a PMO, I want to start with Agile, but PMO is related to project. So I will start with project management methodology, such as project management body of knowledge or PMBOK, which is popular here in North America. But we also forget about PRINCE, PRINCE is quite popular in some European countries. So to cover this project management institute, project management body of knowledge, so two methodologies here in BOK or Waterfall and PRINCE. So this methodology provides us a framework for project initiation, planning, execution, monitoring, and control. And again, if we do it right, we already provide some value as a mature PMO, which uses different frameworks. And also talking about maturity, I believe we talk about sustainability as well, because as I mentioned, I helped different startups, I helped different organizations, but to my surprise, neither startups or large enterprises put much thought into their sustainability or like long-term strategy. And I understand the startups, people are new to business, leadership is new to business as well. They need to react, they need to figure out everything on their way. So they have fires every single day on the different parts of their startup, and they need to react on that. But to my surprise, large enterprises also didn't consider sustainability, risk management, change management. And that's why under this project management methodology, I would like to emphasize the risk management, change management, knowledge management, continuous improvement, quality management, and stakeholder management. Again, nothing new for you guys, but I don't know if there's any organization who practice this like literally to the way that we can call them mature. So risk management. Some of you know that I am traveling across Canada this year, and what I found out, there are many black swans, like weather-wise and also enterprise-wise. So for example, just recently, I was at Prince Edward and saw the Fiona hurricane disaster almost a year after, and people still recovering. Like weather disaster, we have fires here in Ontario and Quebec compared to New Brunswick and Prince Edward, where there is Arctic weather here right now during summertime in June. So all of this takes to risks in business as well. So sometimes we have projects which are really affected by the weather, and Prince Edward is an example. So they've been for 2 weeks without the internet, just because when they built the internet providers, they didn't consider the hurricanes as a risk. And again, as an effective PMO, as a mature PMO, we need to emphasize the risk management as our methodology. So we can identify, assess, and mitigate potential risks throughout the project lifestyle. Change management, again, something what I experienced in my organization recently. Despite the fact that leaders are quite mature and the organization been on the market for 100+ years, there is no such like a methodology there, like change management. So the change is decided in the inner circle of people, and then addresses to the large audience without the consideration of different stakeholders of different parties, which can provide a knowledge which this small like inner circle couldn't even like be aware about. So again, talking about PMO maturity, we need to use the change management methodology and to embrace it in the organization to facilitate smooth transitions and least pain as possible. Because no matter how much we try, there's still going to be pain when we introduce change management. But we need to make sure that we facilitate it as smooth as possible. And to make sure that we do this, we need to understand stakeholder needs, communication plan, training, addressing resistance to change. And it leads to another methodology under the project management, which is the stakeholder management. So again, effective stakeholder management is crucial for mature PMO. And we need to employ like stakeholder identification, analysis, engagement, and communication. Again, emphasize on communication. Nothing new for you guys, but unfortunately, nobody implemented it, at least on my watch, in the different organizations I used to work for. So finally, agile methodologies, my favorite topic, because you know that PMBOK incorporated agile part a few years ago. So project management and agile is going hand to hand right now. And when we had one-on-one event, I even had a speech from PMO to VMO, meaning a value management office. So project management is focusing on the project, but we have not just projects, we have products in the organizations. So we need agile mindset to focus on these products, because products delivered continuously. So for example, if we are working for the banks or for the insurance companies, we have online banking, let's say. We have a front end there, and we might finish the part of the project, but the product will never end. So you have the version 1 of online banking, then we gather feedback from our users, from our stakeholders, and we start working on version 2, then version 3, and it never ends. If we have the website, again, we deliver the website, we gather the feedback, we decided to add a bit more products, or we decided that this product is not sustainable or people don't like it, so we want to cancel the product line. So we need to work on our products continuously. And this is where agile methodologies help us. So depends on the organization, PMO can support in knowledge providing such as SAFe methodology or Scrum or Kanban or whatever you guys choose for your specific case. So this methodology requires flexibility and iterative development, and also enables adaptive planning, collaborative work, again, communication, and one more time, communication, and regular feedback as soon as possible from our users. And this is helpful, especially for the startups when every penny counts. So they can deliver the product without spending years on building it, like from the very beginning to the very end. So we can deliver MVP to gather the feedback if our users like it or not, and then implement this feedback to the next iteration. But to this point, I want to emphasize that many lose the quality management point while delivering MVP. You know, many startups which try to save the cost and deliver like the low quality product with the maximum price. And yes, people can buy it the first round when they're not aware what it is, they want to try something new, or you market it really well, or if you are like the brand for your product and people come to you because they trust you and they're curious what you specifically sell, but it's not sustainable, it's not continuous. So we still need to focus on quality management and implement this methodology as a mature PMO to make sure that we have consistent project delivery and our customers are satisfied. And at the end, continuous improvement. So mature PMO, again, embrace a culture of continuous improvement and employ methodologies such as Kaizen or PDCA or Plan, Do, Check, Act, or lean methodologies to identify areas for improvement, and not just to identify, but also implement changes and monitor the impact of those changes. And since I started talking about lean, so I'm going to finish with Lean Six Sigma. Again, what is that? This methodology helps us to identify and eliminate waste, reduce defects, improve efficiency. And Lean Six Sigma combines lean principles, which target waste reduction, and techniques to aim to minimize process variations. So I think, to summarize, I identified 9 or 10 methodologies we can use. So to reiterate, classic project management, agile methodologies such as SAFe, Scrum, Kanban, Lean or Lean Six Sigma. I think I didn't mention portfolio management, but portfolio management is also important for mature PMO to embrace and to prioritize and select projects aligned with the organization's strategic objectives. Risk management, I think it's number 5, change management, number 6, continuous improvement, number 7, quality management, number 8, and stakeholder management, number 9. So these are classic methodologies. But again, it depends on your organization. There is never one methodology helps all and fit all. And I'm happy to hear from you guys what methodologies you use, or if you have any questions to me.
Very good. Thank you, Aina. A lot of different methodologies, and yeah, there's no magic pill. It all depends on so many factors. So who wants to chime in before we move on to our last question, because it's now almost 7, and I know Luca's waiting to speak for at least 10 minutes. Anybody want to add to what Aina said?
I would like to add one comment, or just maybe the question itself is a bit strange, but in my opinion, it doesn't matter what methodology you're gonna be using. It doesn't define the maturity of PMO at all. You can do only waterfall projects 20 years, you know, in a row, and you will be successful, client will be successful, and he will think, and the organization will think that you have a mature PMO. So at the same time, you might do some startups and you can apply whatever agile methodologies you need. And it would define also whether this PMO is successful or not. So I would say that the mature PMO, this is that one that is able to apply the best methodology for the particular customer to satisfy his needs.
Yeah,
that's all I have.
that's a good point. Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's like situational leadership. You have to look at the situation. Sorry, Aina, go ahead.
yeah, thank you, Joe, and thank you, Evgeny. Yeah, that's what I wanted to reiterate. I agree that as a mature PMO, you need to know these methodologies to be able to apply the right one for your specific customer or for your specific organization. And yes, if your customer needs just classic waterfall and PMO applies it successfully, as I mentioned, like quality management, stakeholder management, and everything else, we can consider this PMO mature. Or like the opposite, if we have products rather than projects, so agile probably would be better, and PMO, like instead of having this ace, just one ace, they can juggle with the card and choose the best card for their specific customer.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. That generated quite a bit of discussion. So now let's move on to the last piece, and Luca's waiting and on standby to answer the question that we have on how can a PMO contribute to an organization's objectives and sustainability. So this is a very intriguing question as well. And so Luca, I'm not going to waste any more time. Take it away.
Okay, I will try to stay within the 10 or 8 minutes. So the answer is the PMO does contribute in a huge way on the organization objectives. I will bring some samples on my experience. So the first point is the strategic alignment. So I was called in a company where I was hired to set up an IT. Thankfully, they were thinking already PMO, so it was not difficult for me to introduce the concept of PMO. And my VP of IT called me and says, this is what they are doing, and this is what they're expecting us to do. And this was the severity of the situation on the company. So there was no alignment between the IT department and the rest of the company. So they were asking us to IT to do projects, and there was not any kind of alignment, any kind of engagement or communication on any kind of level between IT and the rest of the world. So that is the strategic alignment is the first step I stepped in, where I'm trying to align what IT organization strategic objectives and trying to understand with the key stakeholders and with the senior management to prioritize the projects and to find out the best way to deliver back to the company the business value they were looking into for the IT department. So this is a sample, and of course, when the second question was, okay, what is the framework for the projects? What do we need to follow to accomplish the project? The crickets were pretty loud in the answer, and so I decided it was pretty clear there was not a PMO, PM, any kind of framework implemented. So there was no roles responsibility defines. There was not project controls in place. So that was my second steps. It was putting down an effective project governance. So where we can have clear what is expected from each scope, every expected resolution of the projects, and have the project managed effectively and efficiently in both ways. And the way we were able to reduce drastically the scope creeps that we had in all the projects. And we have also introduced what Aina mentioned, the risk management, and calling out which were the major risks, and having on-time decisions when the risks were coming in issues, and says savings as possible monies on the company. So there was different big holes in the processes within this company, but the PMO also was I called in was to manage the resources in the PMO. So we had sales agents running into the developers' desk, asking them when they were going to deliver the projects. So there was the big no. I stepped in, and I put myself as a filter. So IT PMO projects is me. You don't know, you don't go to the single resources to ask for updates. If you want updates, you ask the project manager or you ask to the PMO. So it was a kind of situation where it was not easy to introduce this change. As I mentioned, I was a change agent where I was bringing this completely new change or way of thinking of the IT doing the projects. So I have to introduce slow, not so much slowly because it was in a little hurry, but I need to provide to all the other C-level executives the situation of IT and how it was changing the way we were delivering the projects, bringing also with more communication, attention on how many projects IT was doing. They were completely unaware. For them was just, we need to implement this one, IT do it. But they were not available and having a possible idea how and how many other projects there were within the IT department. So I brought all this information back to all the executives. They have a better understanding of IT and how the PMO was helping the IT to deliver the business value. Of course, resource optimization is the other steps. Once you have the various kind of projects, you can see, okay, how many resources you have available, how many resources you need to hire. Do you need a person on contract? How many volumes of projects are coming down the pipelines? So then you're going to plan, do we need project manager? Do we need on contract, permanent? Do we need project coordinators or business analysts to help them in different kind of projects? So all this kind of centralizing resource planning and monitoring the resources help us to reduce bottlenecks on the PM side and the IT resources. We improve productivity because everyone was focused on the project they were assigned to. And then, of course, people were working, have a better balance, work-life. People before was working, say, 12 hours on weekends because they were so overwhelmed with too many projects, they were not able to deliver. So there was not the visibility. So resource optimization, project governance, and strategic alignment are the first three major steps that we are going to that I introduced. Then another way I brought them is, okay, how we can get better. So lesson learned was this in new way of thinking from them. It says, we never done a lesson learned. So how you improve yourself. So, and this was the way how we can not only discuss what went well, what we need to improve, and all the other questions, but how we can effectively record these lessons and be able that in the future not happening anymore. So there was new internal development to recall anytime there was a similar project related to a program or portfolio, to call up all the previous risks and lessons learned to similar projects. So the new PM has an idea, okay, these things happen, what we can do to avoid it. So at least they have already a pre-filled RAID log with some risks based on the previous lesson learned and the way we improved the way and the quality of what we were going to deliver. So, of course, bringing the lesson learned was just a part. That was introducing the best practices. So PMP gave us a very nice framework to use it. So we start implementing it to be strict and enhanced project delivery capabilities and the ability to adapt, innovate, and changing depending on the business needs. So where we were able to manage, not completely agile, but we were, say, gate points where we say, we are going in this direction. Everyone is aligned and we deliver what is expected. So, and of course, these are some of the points of how the PMO can help to improve the organization objectives. Now all the projects have KPIs that you can put in place to understand, okay, are we doing good? What are the progress? How do we measure success? But the KPI are related to the project, but what is the business value that is coming after the delivery of the project? How do we manage it? How do we calculate these ones? And now is a new way, not now, but talking about OKR, that are objective and key results that the company is going through, and to each OKR, key results of the company, there are related portfolio, program, and project. So which is the impact of this project on all the company objectives based on that stream. So all these activity need to be discussed, not only in the IT department, but all over the department, to be sure that we have constantly delivering business value to all the different departments, not only IT. IT is sometimes seen as a simple service. I want you to give me this service. But IT, from what I saw so far, is the spine in all the companies. So IT need to provide business value and need to learn how to adapt quickly to the business change. So I think I'm done. I don't want to move forward.
But that was very...
Any questions? I tried to bring some experience, and I have a few companies were a disaster, but we were able to adjust them.
Thank you, Luca. I want to ask some people in the audience to just, in the next few minutes before we wrap up, to just tell us about their perspectives. Maybe I can call on Alisa and Vishwa. You know, you heard Luca talk about new ways of thinking, adapting, changing based on business needs, providing value. Can you tell us about your own experiences, or you know, thought leaders that you may have heard of about these concepts that PMOs can generate? So maybe Alisa, you want to go first?
Hi there. Yeah, sure. So in the organization I'm currently at, I'm still fairly, learning the lay of the land, being new there. However, the PMO there is in a very unique position. We have PMOs within almost each micro department, you could call it so, which makes it very difficult to work in an organized fashion or work, I guess, cross-functionally and be able to deliver value in that way. So from a PMO perspective, delivering value where I work, we're kind of keeping the lights on in a way, just have the process in place, have some templates in place, but there is no actual ability to ensure that those are being followed, best practices are being followed, because we lack that management support that's needed to be able to drive that. And then having the PMO help ensure that we're working on the highest, value items. To Luca's point, where he mentioned that getting the strategic alignments in was quite important, right? we sort of lack that today as well. So the reason I kind of joined this forum today was to kind of pick up on, hey, what can I bring back to my organization hearing from here, that what is it that we can do different to ensure that we deliver a little bit better rather than just having taking a complacent approach for whatever reason. How can we enable our PMs and demonstrate to management that a level of assertiveness is required? So that's my piece.
And what? Let me ask you, what role does your PMO leader play? Does he or she have a seat on the C-suite, on the executive team, or?
I guess that would be a bit challenging to answer, because PMOs themselves within the organization work in silos. Like the software PMO doesn't engage with the hardware PMO, which doesn't further engage with the business side of the PMO. So we have that gap within the PMOs themselves, and within the software PMO, you'll have micro organizations that have their own consultant-based PMOs that. So I think the term PMO is almost used too loosely, which kind of creates confusion for those of us that might come in with more experience from different organizations. We have expectations of a PMO that are not being met. So it's a very unique environment, and I think they are starting to understand that from an operational and process perspective, as well as seamlessness of the processes in our operations, we need to improve. We need to do something different. But today, it's very much like, in terms of methodologies, very much waterfall, and they're having a difficult time transitioning into something lightweight at the pace that we're moving. We're unable to keep up with the level of documentation perhaps required. So you get program managers, project managers that are sort of dropping the ball because we just need to do things to move things forward. And so there's a lot of deviation from recommended practices because the practices are unable to evolve with what the strategic roadmap or just a product roadmap, even at the pace it's moving.
Okay, thanks, Aliza. And I know we're a little bit past 7:15, but Vishwa, if you wanted to mention or say something, please go ahead. Vishwa, are you there?
Oh, yes, Joe, thank you. So in terms of the strategic alignment, so that's what I was thinking about in retrospective. So with the large organizations, in my experience that I worked with, especially in the European market, a lot of, from this IT services point of view, I did have the opportunity to witness the maturity of PMOs being continuously monitored and based on the customer needs. Definitely the strategic alignment is something that it starts with. Otherwise, it was very difficult for a PMO to continuously exist in order for them to provide that valuable service to the client, to the evolving needs. So that's where it starts, and so that's my experience so far. But I see that continuous improvement and even the adaptations to Agile was made possible through continuous listening to customers' needs and the continuous assessment in the PMO organization. So this is my experience so far.
Thank you for sharing. That's great. We could go on all night talking about this, but see what you started, Luca. Dimitry and John, did you want to add anything? I see you've put some stuff in the chat. Very good points.
I'm good, Joe. I appreciate everyone's time. This was a good discussion.
Yep. Yeah, Aliza, I just gave you my 2 cents about the takeaway. I understand what you're describing to me. I experienced in a large financial institution I worked at, where they had a PMO in every single department and they did things differently. Common thread and checking on what's going on is what I would say is could be valuable.
Thanks, Dimitri. Yep.
Wow, a lot of stuff we've covered today. Thank you, panelists, Luca, Aina, Dimitry, and Hussain.